Bob, I want to know what's the White Plains connection.
Yeah, let's get back to New York.
Where he was born. It's above the Bronx.
I grew up in White Plains,
I
18
thought
years.
you grew up in the Bronx.
Bob did.
Weren't you on Sedgwick Avenue? Who was born? You were in the Bronx, Roger?
No, I was in White Plains.
Oh, what about Bob? Gutman, where were you?
My formative years were actually in the Bronx,
That's what I thought. Okay.
but I never lived there. It was first when it was staying with my grandparents. I'll come back to that tonight. I now know that it was really their household that was formative in my development of who I am. But in that period, we were living in Yonkers, and I guess my parents would leave me there on weekends, just a few miles away. But then we moved to White Plains, and that was a very big deal in those days because very few people own their own homes. My grandparents owned their own homes, but moving to White Plains was a big deal. That's the house we just sold.
What years?
I was never there very long.
What years were you in White Plains?
Well, we bought the house. We moved in around 58 or 59, and we just sold the house. But I went off to school in New England. By 1967, I was at Phillips Exeter. So,
really?
Is that where you learned to frame yourself so nicely? That is like this.
Who said that?
Lighting. I can't believe it.
That's his art.
Who's giving me that compliment?
I'm a filmmaker, What can I say? I'm really knocked out by that.
The filmmaker isn't making that comment. Who's making that comment?
Is. Yeah.
Who's saying that?
Henry. Here in
Oh,
the dark.
Henry, you are a filmmaker. Oh, well, then I am honored. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm very visually oriented. What?
My grandmother. My grandmother grew up in the Bronx.
Really, where?
I've never been there. Some Russian neighborhood, I guess.
Well, of course.
I'd like to just let everybody know that Arturo is coming is one of our first international
Italia.
people coming
Roma?
here. He's coming from London today. I don't know where he'll be next week.
Next week I'll be in Greece.
Wow.
Lei Italiano, okay?
You're in
Lei
London now.
Italiano?
No, I look Italian maybe because my father was from Argentina.
De Simone Italiano, no?
Yeah, I mean, many Italians went to
Arturo,
Argentina in the 19th centuries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Arturo, you're in London now?
Right now I am in London, yes.
Wow.
Wow.
It's only 5,000 miles.
It's
Oh
like
my God.
Arturo came via the Gloucester Writers Center's screenwriting class, which is happening tomorrow. So that's how
Where's
we found
that?
out about it, I think. It's right here, Elizabeth. It's on this
Online.
box here.
Who's teaching it?
Are you working on a film now in London, Arturo?
I'm taking this course on screenwriting because I have some material that I could adapt, I think, to a screenplay. But I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not in cinema.
Interesting.
Cheryl Evenstein.
So, Arturo, do you have something to share with us tonight? Do you have a piece of writing?
Yeah, I have poems.
Excellent. We should discuss just real quickly. Normally when we're at the Writers Center, the little house on Eastern Ave, we pay homage to the pencil on the side.
That's not there. Just
That's
erase
still
it.
missing.
Gotta erase it.
But Roger, we are going to resurrect the pencil. We got a donation to rebuild it, so
It will be
look for the
reborn.
pencil coming soon.
Huh.
So you don't want one from an antique show because you see those things in antique shows, the big pencils sometimes.
So we often have. It's been a while since Amanda was the host for our monthly open mic. Amanda Cook, and she's. I think she's deep into her studies now. I'm going to give Henry an opportunity if he wants to make any announcements about upcoming events at the Writers Center,
Yeah. Well, let's see.
and then while he's talking, everyone be thinking about what you'd like to share tonight. Go for it, Henry.
Okay. Well, thank you, Roger. Thank you for hosting this. You know, is this our third
Fourth.
third
Fourth.
Zoom, or is it our, let's see, April, May? Did we start in April or did we start in May? I don't remember. But
Yeah, we
anyhow,
started
thank you
April.
for.
I did one, and you
Yeah.
didn't you
April,
say
May,
3?
June. Yeah. So this is our
It's a
fourth.
totally, this Zoom environment is interesting. It allows for people like Arturo, to like jump in, as well as whoever hears about it. So I'm kind of excited about that because it kind of expands our audience to whoever wants to spend the time. But
It doesn't even have-
it also brings together this community from Gloucester, Massachusetts, that's been involved in the Gloucester Writers Center for 10 years. So I'm very happy that it has that flexibility. In terms of stuff that's coming up, wow. Well, we do have this, there's the Gloucester Writers Center for the last couple of months due to COVID has had a writer in residence, and his name is Peter Almond, and he's a journalist, a filmmaker, and a writer, and he's been doing a class on screenwriting. But he has lots of ideas that we're developing at the Writers Center, and the last one, which I would encourage everyone to go see, was a show that we did with David Blight, who is a historian and a expert on America's Civil War and Reconstruction. And if you go to gloucesterwriterscenter.org and you go to click on archive, and then you go and click on videos, and then you go and click on 2020, you'll see this interview that Peter did with David Blight. And I would encourage everyone out there, if they're interested in what America is going through at this particular moment, in terms of this incredible moment for change, as well as this hideous moment for disaster is happening at the same time, to check it out, because it's an interesting piece of his scholarship is very important to these particular times. So Peter has been, I was hoping that he was going to actually like chime in to come check this out, because he's going to do some other things for us. But he's doing, we have a new program. This is the last thing I'll say. We have a new program. It's called Right Way Up. That's WRITE, Right Way Up. And it's a conversation with writers. And we've had conversations with lots of different writers. And we have people in the community who are talking with these folks. We have Mark Erlansky, who's coming up, who's going to be doing an interview soon. We have Jennifer Finney Boylan, who is a out trans woman who is going to be talking about her new book. And we just we're starting to call all of these interviews and get them out to everybody who is in the community on Cape Ann and the virtual community. So I'm very excited about that, and I hope you can check it out. And that's it. Thank you, Roger.
We can't hear you.
Put your sound on.
Thank you. Bad habit.
Okay.
I am going to just very quickly share my screen to show a bit of the website, which, if you look closely, is gloucesterwriters.org. Pretty intuitive. You can find archives up here, or if you scroll down, here's the archives that Henry was talking about.
Oh, this is the Gloucester Writers Center archive?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
so
is
I went
Gloucester
to, okay.
Writers website. And I'm sorry, it says no more events, but
Yeah. That,
next event. So I won't take time to explore this, but it's pretty clearly set up, and calendar of events.
Click on calendar of events.
We should
well,
have.
there's no events up there now.
Okay.
Okay. So anyhow,
Because all of our events now are virtual, so we can't meet. So it depends on when we shoot them, when we cut them, and when we present them.
Yeah.
So we don't have it's confusing right now because of the COVID, but there's lots of stuff to explore. That's a wonderful, what Roger's talking, this interview with Fred Dewey and Peter Anastas, probably one of the last public performances of Peter Anastas. It's a wonderful, I believe they're talking about,
Come back, let's spend a few minutes.
oh, geez.
Where was that done?
Hannah
At the
Arnett.
center?
They talk
or
a lot
somewhere
about
else?
Hannah Arnett in that conversation. So
7:30, it was supposed to be 6:30.
this is the interview you were talking about. The many thousands gone.
yeah, this is a great poem. You know, maybe it's a long poem, but maybe people can go. This is a poet from New Bedford. His name's Everett Hoagland, and it's a poem that is connected with Black Lives Matter. So
Wasn't that the woman who died, who was married to Ed? What's his name? The one who did Charles Olson and
Finishing up his-
Perini portraits. Didn't she go with Ed Hogan?
I don't know.
Don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to take a moment to
Thank you.
to share that, let people see the website. Again, it's gloucesterwriters.org,
Impressed.
and pretty useful. So the other thing to mention here before we really open the mic up is just some procedural things. The typical courtesy is to mute your mic. I may just mute everyone. As the host, I can mute you if I don't like what you're saying. But it just is a courtesy to our readers. If you mute your mic, that's a pretty standard Zoom protocol now. And when it's your turn to speak, you unmute. But one of the advantages of this Zoom platform is that you can use the chat function, which is down at the bottom of your screen, the button that says chat, and you can type comments as we're going along. If there's something that you particularly like, we're here as writers to encourage each other and maybe get some new inspiration. So I would encourage you to use that chat function to pass on some good words.
Can you raise your hand or you do the hat?
Roger, maybe you should mute everyone right now because there seems to be some people talking with other people.
Okay. All right. I'll just see if I can. Okay. So I've muted everybody. I'm still unmute because I'm the boss here. So normally we have a piece of paper to sign up, so we have some kind of order. But I think under the circumstances, we also usually say 5 minutes for people. I don't have a ukulele out here, so that means if you start going over your 5 minutes, I'll start singing, and that'll be really annoying. So I'll try not to be too harsh, but is it a safe bet that everybody here, give me a thumbs up if you have something to read for us tonight, if you have something to share. Okay, so far everybody. Henry, do you have something to share? Okay,
I haven't decided yet, but I will look for something.
you'll be inspired. And
Yes.
Cheryl, we can't see you. Uh, Cheryl, do you have something to read?
Uh, no, I'm just listening today.
Okay, so we have
Thank
about 6 people to read, maybe a 7th. So um, I think for tradition's sake, we'll aim for that 5 minutes. That's probably all of my poetry you can tolerate, but we won't have to be too harsh on that time limit. So raise your hand if you'd like to go first. There you go, Howard. I will unmute you. I think I can unmute you. Howard, you may have to unmute yourself.
I did unmute myself.
There we go. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay. I actually know Henry, and I've actually been there, though it was about 2 years ago. I'm a friend of Dan Wilcox from Albany, a good man, and he always said, I moved about 2 years ago. I moved to Massachusetts. I used to live in New York State, but he always said, when you ever get around to Gloucester, you got to go to the Writers Center. So I did it once, and I haven't gotten back yet. But when I heard you went to Zoom, I figured here's my chance. This is called autobiography. We may agree on this much. There has to be a beginning. From this in no way inevitable start, the action proceeds following agreed upon custom, moving from the hard stop on the left to the variable stop on the right, as if we were guards at Buckingham Palace or prisoners in an exercise yard, following an ordained path, but permitted a small degree of discretion. Pacing back and forth, doing something, if not actually going anywhere. It follows the pattern people prefer, proceeding down the page, subject to the law of gravity, like everything else. Each of us moving forward, one might say bravely forward, but since life has no backspace, no delete, what choice is there? It's one of life's regrets. There are others. Think of our shared dilemma of writing our story with someone else's characters and not starting from the beginning. So I may have misled you before about the beginning, for even the beginning is not so much the beginning as the continuation of a story where a new character is added. You, the presumed author, born mid-story in someone else's story. Still, no one hesitates to call it your story, as if these were characters you chose, circumstances you selected. They'll say, this is your life, as if you had been served a dinner you ordered, though you barely recognize it. And by now, it's taken almost all the time you have. That's one. One more little one. If anybody's ever been out to Moab, it's southern Utah. It's full of great geological forms, and it's a beautiful area. But there's a particular area of Moab which is called Slick Rock. That is the name of this poem, Slick Rock. On a solitary morning walk along the Slick Rock, I recall why this sandpapery, sandstone terrain carries this odd old cowboy name. American Indians rode their horses on rim rock, bare-hooved and sure-footed, but clad with iron shoes. The cowboys' horses tended to lose their footing. Sudden drop-offs into deep crevices and canyons made it a troubling place for a horse to lose its footing. The sudden clattering of hooves losing their grip, the cowboys' yelp and whoa, the slap of horse flesh hitting the slick rock, then in slow motion, the terrified, wide-eyed horse struggling to regain its footing, the bewildered, opened-mouthed rider cinched together, sliding over the edge into history and language. Thank you. Thank you. I'll mute myself now.
Before you do, Howard, where are you coming? Where are you reading to us from?
I'm in Ashland, Massachusetts. It's a little south of Framingham.
Perfect, perfect. Well, you're not too far to be able to make it up to Gloucester.
No, I will as soon as the restaurant's open again and we can get some lobster.
There you go. There you go. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank that image of horse and rider sliding into history and language. Sue, do we have a volunteer to go next? All right. Sorry, Henry, I'm going to give Virginia the nod.
I have a little story here, the true story. It's about the Spanish influenza and COVID. The year was 1918. My mother related the story to me of how she was just 8 years old, being born in 1910. She was extremely ill with the Spanish influenza. She related her doctor visited her home and stated to her parents he would not be visiting in the morning as she would not survive the night. They were instructed to prepare for her funeral and burial. My mother related that night she recalls Jesus and all her favorite saints appeared to her in the vision. She remembers her parents and brothers and sisters at her bedside crying as she was praying and speaking to each of her favorite saints. My mother being born in Sicily, where faith and devotion to God and saints was prevalent. Miraculously, she survived the night. She lost all her beautiful long hair. Remembering returning to school, she wore a little cap to hide her bald head. Attending church services a few months later, a nun from the Order of Sisters of Mercy spoke to her, inquiring if she had made her sacrament of First Eucharist. My mother answered she had been extremely ill and unable to attend her religious education classes. Well, the nun stated next week, if she could prepare her clothing in time, she would be able to receive the sacrament. Oh, my mother was so happy, and she returned home and explained this to her mother. Well, taking a little box from the closet, her mother revealed a beautiful white dress, a veil, white stockings, and shoes. My mother never realized these were to be her burial clothes. Happily, she was able to receive her first communion with her class. My husband related to me. His mother was married to Leroy Greek, who also contracted the Spanish influenza. Sadly, he did not survive, leaving her a widow with 4 little sons. And the youngest son, Charlie, also perished. He was only 4 years old. 110 years later, April 2020, a month after his 55th birthday, Leroy's great-grandson, William Willie Breek, he died of COVID. He was the second person in Gloucester to die of the virus. He's survived by two young children, ages 15 and 12. My son Mike also tested positive for COVID. Luckily, he had no symptoms and he is now negative. Now, at 91 years old, I'm staying home. I'm social distancing, only rarely leaving my home wearing a mask. There are so many questions to answer. Will a vaccine to prevent this virus be invented? Will schools open in the fall? How will life be changed? I'm so afraid our life has changed forever. This nasty virus has not let go. Kind of short, but. My mother was the first of 11 children, and my Aunt Frances just died last week, and she was the last survivor of the whole family of 11. So now I'm the matriarch of the family. Now I'm the oldest of the whole Piscatello clan that was my mother's family.
Did your Virginia, did your aunt live through the Spanish flu and through COVID?
Yeah, she did. She was in Seacoast Nursing Home.
Wow.
My son is actually in a nursing home. My son Mike, he had a massive stroke last year. And
have you been able to visit him at all?
Well, 4 months, we didn't see him at all for 4 months. Now we were just giving like 20-minute visits once a week. We visit him outside, and now they've extended it like to an hour. But the weather's been so hot, sometimes they have to call the visits off because they're outside. He's got a lot of courage, you know. He has aphasia, he can't talk, and he's all paralyzed on the right side. And it's been an awful year for me because my daughter Roberta died in April, and she just died in her sleep, and she was only 60. So it's just been quite a time. But,
Well, Virginia only had 7 compared to the 11.
yeah.
I had 1.
Yeah,
7,
I've thought a
8
lot about it.
grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren. I'm
Mm.
trying to get my son home, but I'm so afraid of this COVID. If I have to get caretakers, someone might bring the virus into my home, you know. That's the only thing preventing me from doing that, because I've got a big 10-room house and I've got plenty of room.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're able to visit him. That's progress.
Yeah, I
Well,
call him on the phone every day, and I says, Mike, are you hungry? And he goes, aboo, aboo. That means yes. If it's aboo, that means no. Then they let the restaurants deliver food, so that's good. And I order it, you know, the chicken rice bowl or the steak chip subs or whatever he wants. I'll just order it and have it delivered.
There you go. Thank you for that. Thank you for that story. Henry, you were waving your hand before. Would you like to go now?
Yeah, it's a hard act to follow, but I wanted to, I wanted to give a little history here because of people about the Writer Center. So, here is the Writer Center, let's see, there we go, is because of Vincent. It exists because of Vincent. He wrote 30 books of poetry in there, and I thought I would just want to read a few from his collection that was done by the University of Connecticut that George Butterick selected. So I just have a few here, and I'm going to start right into it. Vincent grew up in Lynn, Massachusetts. He was born in 1913, so he experienced the Depression and all of and everything associated with it. This is called The Factories. Sunset splashed blood in our broken eyes, and the moon splinters. Dead, we are huge and ugly, with derelict canyons between. Our floors empty as Sunday, abandoned by the bosses, and a few abusing us. Our skeleton teeth locked on the sky. Workers, it's not our fault you starve. Workers, resurrect us. Put life back into our hollowed bodies. Let us breathe again, and the word fired be a nightmare that died with the past. And for the first time, own your jobs. The union to operate us for the good of the people, and the profits divided among you to build a city of love. Fill us with a bubble of bustle, your tools clicking a chorus of work, stitching leather into shoes for the feet of the people. Laughter splitting the air, human voices warm with intimate happiness, exciting our veins and arteries and cold floors. We'll feel we are wanted. We'll drink your singing at the machines. Wait for your daily coming. And glow with the jagged electricity of seasonal picnics. We won't hurt you with accidents. No more speed up or torturing the nerves and the bottled anger. And the bosses cracking their whip for low prices. Patch us up and the air conditioning of our lungs. Shoes you make will be your own. And you'll love them like works of beauty. And the reality of a 5-hour day, inventing machines ending drudgery and pouring leisure into your laps. And the wages will build you and your own homes. Your example will be a fuse leading to coffin cities and ghost towns, igniting the people to possession to free America. Think, believe it. You've got nothing to lose but your poverty, and the creative life that should be yours will begin. Time rots us and buries you. Oh, workers, we are yours for the taking. And what are you waiting for? All right, I think that was probably close enough to 5 minutes. Who knows? But that was an example of Vince, who was a product of Lynn, Massachusetts, and the Depression, and how that was the factories talking to him, and that's from whence he came. So, thank you.
I found a lot of his books at the Dogtown Book Market and at the other antique place, and then they're around. People bring them in. So if anybody wants secondhand, the ones you have an old one, right?
They're all old.
Okay, I'm old.
We're all old.
He would have been like 100.
Toro.
What now? 108 or something. 13.
He was born in 1913, so it'd be 100.
77, 87, and 20. Oh my, he would have been 107. My father was born in 1914, I guess. In Brockton, and his father worked in the shoe places, the stuff he's talking about.
Yeah, Brockton was a big shoe city as well as Lynn.
Then they went to New York.
Yeah.
I have stories on that.
So, Elizabeth, do you have a story to share?
Well, this one, I was going to bring something else, but I can't find it. It's like in another pile that I have in the other room. But I just came across when I lived in Italy. I wrote some stuff about it. So I'm going to write about Italy. I was in Torino because I went over to visit this guy I was going out with, and he said, come and live with me. So I brought my dog on the Michelangelo, the ship. And he picked me up in Genoa, and we went to lunch in Genoa, and we had pesto Genoese. It was incredible. I've never had anything as good since, but I make it. So we lived in an old war building, and like the building next to us was new, was bombed out in the Second World War. And then behind that was a meat slaughterhouse. And then it was a new building. We were really old. I had to walk up. There were 2 flights for every flight. It was like going up 12 stories or something. every day up and down. They didn't have an elevator. And then across the street was an Art Nouveau building, very, very ritzy, but built like 1890s. And underneath it was a market in the plaza, with a water fountain in the middle where dogs and children played. The public walked outside on the four sides of the market. Fruits and vegetables, meat and fish food, and one day a large langostino, a lobster costing $35. I asked the pescatore why the lobster didn't have a second arm, and the fisherman said that this was an African species. They only had one arm. Not a fair fight for the lobster, I thought, passing the herbs and vegetables. A man, I heard him laugh and shouted out loud for everyone to hear, "Tua carne mangia il mio carotti," he called out. And I called out, "Hermie," and my dog bolted out from under his table with a carrot in her mouth. And what he was saying was, "Your dog is eating my carrots." Lunging over the little iron gate, Hermie was surrounded by the grass lawn, and laying down, she began to munch her treat. Everybody, the man and his local women customers, all laughed. Quite a sight to see. We only paid, it says $35 a month for a one bedroom. I don't remember if I did that. I think it was $350. I don't know. It's the 70s. Could it be that cheap? One bedroom, kitchen, bath, and a living room fronted by a full-length terrace. If we were too tired to walk Hermione, we ushered her out on the glass doors to pee in the hole of the rainwater gutter pouring down the 5 flights of the. One day, the woman next door to us, now renting us the apartment, and they happened to buy the one across the way, and she was our landlady. She owned the apartment we rented, invited me in for an afternoon aperitivo. One day, we fought, my husband and I as I entered my apartment later in the day, she opened her door, and she says in Italian, "A little talk," she said. I dropped off my shopping and entered the shiny, weekly, waxed, sparkling, and polished terrazzo-floored apartment. She was ironing laundry, and I noted she was doing her husband's socks and underpants, a neatly folded pile on the dining room table. She even ironed underwear, covering parts of our bodies nobody saw. Amazing. Mrs. Musso must have heard us fighting as she talked to me in Italian about men and marriage. I listened as she thought she was kindly giving me advice. Had she heard our dining room furniture flying out the little exterior kitchen terrace down the 5 stories, which if somebody was traversing the courtyard below would have been killed. There was a factory in the back. We got through it and took our problems with us back to America. We moved to Maine, a climate akin to the Dolomiti Mountains, the Italian Alps, northeast of where we live, but that's another story. Bye, Benny. Elizabeth Enfield. I forgot all about that. He wants to a chair. And, you know, there are people going back and forth to this little factory. And if anybody was walking, they would probably got killed. All our dining room. And in the lobby of the building, every once in a while, somebody would come and make mattresses. So they would like call you down, and they brought real straw and real fabric. And they would ask you what size you wanted, and they make it on this piece of board. And it was a great place, great place. And I had a good figure from walking up and down those stairs all day. So anyway. Any questions?
I'm sending you a message here.
That was great, Elizabeth. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear my last one. I really was going to do it, but you'll hear it next time.
Okay,
You
next
gotta
time,
come.
next month. You always have to hold
I-
something.
6 days at a mental ward, and I almost didn't get out. I would have been there the rest of my life. I signed a paper called Section
So-
12. It's going to be called Section 12,
Section 12.
but I might get thrown in again if they hear it.
Is that when you moved to Gloucester?
No, that happened last week, my dear. It's a really bad story.
No, this is a story that's unfolding.
Wow.
It's unfolding, and I can't continue pressing charges or go to the police because they got me in trouble. I called them almost every day. I was getting robbed. I was getting robbed at night. I was getting robbed in the daytime. I now have a alarm system, and I don't know how to run the damn thing. All right, finished. I will write it. It's going to be terrific.
Yeah, write it all down. Write it all down, because someday you won't be able to believe it. Right?
Well, they didn't believe me. That's why I was there. They said
Yeah.
that I was demented and I was doing all the stuff and I was hiding stuff and I pooped in the toilet and I left the chipotle salsa in the refrigerator. I put the bolt on the door in my store so that nobody could get out or in and all this stuff. All the stuff this person was doing. I changed the lock 3 times. Nobody ever saw anybody. My neighbors never saw anybody. I think it was all staged, to tell you the truth. I even got back some of my Woodstock photos, but he left. We went and put them on a carrot. I shouldn't tell. It's just going to come out. You got to come
It's going to
next
come
time.
out in your story. You got to
Yeah,
write it all down.
I didn't get them all back. I just got the shit.
Stranger. Truth stranger than fiction, right?
That's right. It's the name of the thing. I just named it. Is this true or not? And that's up to you.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And Arturo's waving his finger there. I think you have something for us. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Thank you. I will read to you 2 poems from this collection called Mare Nostrum Costa Nostra. It was a book of poems related mostly to themes around the Mediterranean and politics. So this poem is called, this poem is Eros, the Greek Electrician. I wrote this poem in Greece. It's more about never mind. I wrote this poem in Greece a few years ago during the crisis. Eros, the Greek Electrician. The electrician Eros can read the colors of all the chords in a fuse box and say their Greek names, but he remains on strike throughout the long darkness. Darkness is the best kind of strike. Flames lengthen like swords from hilts, eating air, drinking the welled-up tears from faces of mothers whose sons set themselves alight with precious fuel in public parks, first making sure to be standing far from those who might risk infection by the flame. The swords must march on without young men to carry them. They swing in the air, pendulums, after the calumny of autothanatos, suicides, counterfeit deaths. The metal chassis of a bed constitutes its skeleton, upon which Grecian youths, electricians, after screwing in energy-saving light bulbs, products of Germany, proceed to take off all of their clothes and keys, their punk anarchist garments and other trivia, keeping on their dyes and contraceptives. For the rule of Sparta has made even the lovers lucid. No matter how much raki they sip, Sparta has made them wise, soberly planning for a brain-gray future, avoiding wailing expenditures that fill cribs then ask for more. More of the youths will study to be electricians from now on. It was Eros, the Greek Electrician poem. I don't know if you want, I can read a second poem. This one. This poem is called The Trending Apollonic Art is Napoleonic Art. This is instead of art criticism, instead of an article of art criticism, kind of a theory. Guilt-based art ate up tragedy, comedy, the sweating fat caterpillar, wolfed up the butterfly and all common loci, where flowers conversed an intertransgression. poems about how much you ate are much like the poems about how little the others ate. They cannot be eaten, already stolen, they cannot be taken. Symmetry is violence after art, points disappear with the sun. But all monuments are to the sun and ask the only eraser to do his best number of effortless art on them. No mourners are for the sun. Son of a bitch won't stay buried. No symmetry in tragedy, and in comedy little to none, though they may be twins, brothers, in this infernal conversation that only leads to ladders unrolling from mouths past the lower floors of hell's towering office buildings, out of here and into music or drown. This was the second poem.
Was that also from Greece?
No, that one was not from Greece. That one I wrote in the Netherlands, actually. Yeah, most of the poems I wrote in the Netherlands sound like that. Yeah.
But you're writing them in English?
Yes. Well, these I wrote mostly in English.
You originate them in English?
Yes, thus far, yes.
But do you think that where you are when you write them, does that change the sound of the poem or the?
Maybe, yeah. Well, definitely Greece. Being in Greece, certainly, or being in a place traveling in a place I especially like, or certainly. Yeah, the Netherlands doesn't really. The Netherlands produces mostly more gloomier kind of poem.
Arturo, is your what Argentina is your home? Do you consider Argentina your home, or I'm
It
curious?
has become my home. I was born and grew up on Aruba, an island
Yeah,
in the
a
Caribbean.
lot of people from Gloucester go to Aruba.
Really? Yeah, I can imagine. I've heard this accent before. Yeah, yeah. I've heard these accents before on the beaches. Yes, yeah, and so I grew up on Aruba, but my father is from Argentina. So I went to Argentina when I was in my 20s, and I also lived in the Netherlands. Aruba is an ex-colony of the Netherlands.
Right.
Yes.
I want to ask you this question about language, though, because poetry is a language of its own. But do you read poetry in other languages?
Yes.
Spanish.
Yes. Well, in the past, I read in English and many translations from Russian and other languages into English. But in recent years, well, not in recent years, but also in the past, I read a lot of poetry in Spanish, of course. In Spanish and in other languages I speak. There's not much written in the language of Aruba. Yeah. Yeah.
Am I being heard?
Yes,
yeah,
you are.
we can hear you, Bob.
Arturo, this is fascinating. It's so multilingual. If people are multilingual, it's okay. The first one, my knowledge of Greek, this is an American thing. It's not as good, and I was kind of following it. But the second one, I really ripped into it, and until you burned out my mind near the end. This is common for me with everything I hear because I really need to see it in writing. But then when you said you wrote it in Holland, and now that I understand that basically you're Dutch, what provoked you to write the second one? What
Well,
went through your mind?
I mean, I'm not really Dutch. I mean, Aruba has a relationship to the Netherlands the way maybe the way Puerto Rico has a relationship to Alaska or something. I don't know. Um, but
It's profoundly humane. My first girlfriend was Dutch. I mean, many people say I
Okay.
should have married her. You're not going to.
we have a good experience. Okay.
It's profoundly Dutch, you know,
Aruba.
and you have that overview
Ah,
of the futility of borders and statues, and you know, it's all before all this. I mean, that's a hell of a poem.
ah.
And I didn't even understand. I just burned me out in the last couple of lines. It's one of those things you have to study. And I think that comes with multilingualism. I mean, you have so many different, you know, metaphors that you're reaching into. We don't all. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Can you show us the book that you were reading from?
This is the book.
Poems of the Mare Nostrum Cosa Nostra.
And this is the back. It says a certain design. So there's a small publisher here in Bristol, in England.
That's your book.
Yes, this is
Okay, so we can look it up that way.
Yeah,
It's not an anthology that you were published in. We can look it up and actually see your book. Okay.
This is my first collection of poems,
Okay.
I guess.
Very nice. I bet there's a lot more poems in there that would be worth reading.
Oh,
Were these two your favorites?
no, I've read these at previous occasions, so that's why I'm a little bit used to reading these a few other poems.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thank you for this evening.
Well, I hope you come back. You have some more poems to read to us.
Yes, I do.
First Monday of every month.
First Monday.
And you have the link now.
Mm.
So Bob, it's down to you and me. You have something to read?
Okay. Yeah, I do. My grandfather was David Litsky, my great-grandfather. He came in the blizzard to New York in the blizzard of 1888, you know, when the Statue of Liberty was just going up. He started a knockoff clothing business. And after 25 years, the employees gave him this. See this plaque? Can you see that? Can you all see that plaque? Anyway, my grandmother wanted me to have it. He was given this plaque. Remember when people in the clothing industry were being exploited, they actually had the Triangle Fire. So that is 1929. That plaque was given. 10 years later, he's writing a letter to the family. I'm not going to give you the exact date. I'm going to pull the letter out. This is the letter. I'm going to put this down. I'm only going to read part of the letter. So it's now sometime in 1939. And this is the original letter. It's written on the letterhead of a hardware plumbing supply. That was what the family was doing. And read part of it. Dear children, Ruby and Frida. That's my grandfather, his son-in-law, and my grandmother. And he spells it in a way that's very Russian, and that's why she must have always signed her letters to us, Frida, with quotation marks. We never understood, because the way she signed it, her name to us, wasn't actually the way her father wrote it. Dear children, Ruby and Frida. First of all, I must thank you all, and the dear grandchildren, Lucille and Martin, that's my mother and uncle, for the fine, pleasant courtesy to us while staying in your house for such a long time. Things in general may not be so pleasant, but especially for me in my advanced life is a great problem that is hard to solve. It is not much the financial problem that matters. It is the constantly constantly grinding for the last 10 years. Remember, this is near the ending of the Great Depression that I had while in business. And he goes on, and you can see that he's seriously depressed, and he's apologizing for having to sell his house and live with his son-in-law and his daughter. There's only one thing. When my mother showed me this letter, she couldn't have access to the meaning of the context, but now we can, thanks to the internet. The date of the letter is July 3rd, 1939. This would be the last July 4th that we'd ever have. The world would be different. Within that week, of course, you already had Kristallnacht, you had the Anschluss, you had Jews being excluded. They couldn't find jobs. Everybody needed money. Not only here, but over there. So we don't even know which relatives needed money over there, if any. They never talked about that. And so within this week, Goebbels had told the Poles that Danzig would become part of Germany. The Poles said they would fight. The French had 3 million soldiers on the frontier. And the president of France dismissed Parliament early because he said this is going to be a short vacation. And Churchill warned Hitler to quit while you're ahead, because people might actually think you're a great man. That was July 3rd, 1939. The next day, July 4th, 1939, people don't realize it, was the day that Lou Gehrig said that he was incurably ill. In that famous speech, "I'm the luckiest man in the world." There never would be another July 4th like that. I now know from this context, remember, he was not a native English speaker. His handwriting was beautiful. And in his own way, he was saying, he wasn't saying I'm a broken man. It was always interpreted that way. He was always a forward-looking man. The cigar humidor, he was famous for smoking his cigars in a car in the heyday, having a fancy car and a chauffeur who was actually would become a medical student. He gave people jobs. What this was about was he knew that it was time to pass the torch. He'd had enough. It was a world that he couldn't understand, and he wouldn't live through it. He did die in 1943, just as we were about to win the war. And I just want to say, it occurred to me that every male in our generation, and I'm the fourth, just as we were about to retire or reach old age, the world turned topsy-turvy on us, and that's why I wanted to read you this letter. This is, my mother said I was just a lot like my great-grandfather, and I just wanted you guys to have it. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. That's it. Over to you, Roger.
Okay, thank you, Bob. We get lessons from the past.
Well, it's the context. We did not know that as he was reading the papers in his own way, he was saying, "I can't get you through this." And in a way, it's a strict. My mother would always say, it would 6-7 weeks later, the Germans would cross the frontier in Poland, September 1st, 1939.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother would always say, if he'd only hung on, he could have been in business making uniforms. But that wasn't entirely the point. I now know. He was saying, this is your world, you're going to have to get us through it.
Yeah. Now the ball is in our court.
That's right. The torch has been passed, as Kennedy said.
Has been passed. Yeah. You learn from history, but then you got to make your own history.
He chose a very auspicious moment to write something which had obviously been on his mind for a very long time. That's the point. And that had been lost to history until you Google the date.
Yeah.
What did he die of?
What?
What did he die
I don't know what he
of?
died of.
Or did he?
I don't know that story. I don't know what he died of. And by the way, I grew up probably in the same room that he shared with his wife, my great grandmother, in Davidson Avenue in the Bronx. which was probably part of his Churchill estate. It was adjacent to the Kingsbridge Armory, which definitely was part of the Churchill. That was Bathgate, the Churchill estate. Winston Churchill's grandfather, his mother's side, with the elevated railroad running through the backyard.
I took that down to school every day into Manhattan.
Yeah.
The Jerome Avenue line, right?
That's the area.
All right, thank you, Bob. My this is the disadvantage of me sitting outside. I had a very pleasant evening, but it's getting dark.
I can't see
Fading
you.
away here.
You have a light? I only see your eyeglasses.
You can see. So you know I'm still here. So just
Oh, okay.
focus on my words. I have a couple of short poems and then one from my book. So this one, I'm taking a chance with this one because
Put the brightness on your computer up, and we'll see your face better.
maybe so. There we go.
Yay.
Ooh, that's kind of spooky though. I don't know if I like that. There we go. All right. I got to be able to see my words though. So this poem just came. Well, it started yesterday. Came to an end today. So I don't know what it means. I don't know if this is its final form. So any comments that you have, I'll take it as suggestion. Winter has come to lay with me now in summer's heat. A bitter cold by my side, ice beneath my feet. A wind preceding sudden squalls, storms of afternoon, to cool hot calm of August and sweep away the sun. A crowd of bees emerge abuzz at entrance of their hive, as if they mean to swarm away and leave me here alive. Alive, but wondering how to live, caught between heat and cold. The storms that sweep, the breeze, the buzz of mind alive, but growing old. Okay, my family is calling me, so I better get on with this. So, we had the death of a friend this week,
Ooh.
and so I want to read this. This I am going to turn up my brightness because I can't see my book. This is my book, Imperishable. Let's see if I can find this poem here. Should have looked it up before. They say, I don't know who said it, but it's been said that all poetry is about love or death, or both. This is after Requisite days, and I forget who was it. Was it you, Virginia, that was talking about? Oh yeah, your son and his stroke, and you can tell that even though his brain has been injured, the essential person is still fully present. This is what I felt when my brother was losing his battle to brain cancer,
Oh,
and his brain was no longer able to function, but he was still very much present, and he and I had the same connection that we always had. So that was the inspiration of this poem. See if I can read it. I know what I'll do. I'll put it on my... There we go. After Requisite days. In a dark and sightless space, a warm and watery world, An embryonic person grows in fetal comfort curled. He sucks his strangely opposable thumb that hasn't yet anything to clasp, and tucks the folds of a growing brain that hasn't yet anything to grasp. Arms he has like folded wings, with nothing yet to hold, with eyes to see and nothing to see, and ears that hear no story told. And in the comfort of that world, that garden of placental bliss, no wonder that the fetus thinks there is no other life but this. But when the requisite days have passed, comes a day that seems like death, when, cut off from his umbilical world, he wails and takes first breath. He enters an undiscovered land, a world of sight and sound, discarding the once sustaining cord, trading placenta for newfound light. And so, my brother, as we near the end of our requisite days, this thought calms my natural fear, changing sorrow and grief to praise. That the world we'll soon be born to will be as different as this world from womb, and the end of life in this life speaks more of rebirth than of tomb. Then, discarding the placenta of senses and cutting the cord of words, senses and words that have nourished our souls in preparation for spiritual worlds, we'll exit one realm and enter the next, wailing perhaps at what seems like death, realizing perhaps that heaven's air is love and will take first breath. For the loves we learn in this life must be as fetal eyes are to light, learning what's known without words and seeing what's seen without sight. So for now, let's live our requisite days in joy and love and care, to be ready to use our spiritual lungs when born into heaven's air.
Oh, so good.
Beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I've certainly enjoyed all these readings this evening. And, before we say goodnight, I'm going to share the screen one more time. Let's see if I can find this.
While Dave,
This is on Medium,
Oh.
which is a nice writer's outlet,
Uh-huh.
with Arturo Desmond,
Uh-huh.
a Peruvian Argentinian writer. So the way Medium works is the more people that go and read and give them, you see these little clapping hands?
Uh-huh.
Give them some claps, and
right.
he will.
Thank you. That is my column. I was writing a column on Latin American poetry, introducing Latin American poetry to the English reader. So these are articles about like a poet from, this is an Argentinian poet, Olga Orozco. So I wrote a series of essays about these different poets from Latin America.
Oro is gold. Does that mean gold?
No, her surname is Orozco. It doesn't
Orozco.
necessarily mean, yeah. These are essays in English. I wrote them for. There is a journal called Drunken Boat.
Oh yeah.
It changed its name, poetry magazine, and the editor, like, this is an interview with this one here. This is an interview with
That's Ravi Shankar's thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some kind of falling out among these editors, but he is the originator of this. And this here is an interview of a girl from Chicago who translated a very important Argentinian poet, Miguel Angel Bustos, into English for the first time. Like here's my article about him, about Miguel Angel Bustos.
So perhaps, Arturo, while you're connected to, while you're involved with the Writers Center, you should write up a quick something for these folks on how one goes about writing for Medium, because I think that's an open platform.
You are muted suddenly. I suddenly don't hear you.
No, I'm not muted, but
Oh, now I hear you.
yeah, I think Medium is a platform for writers that I don't know if it's just open to anyone but you might have some people here at the Writers Center that would be interested in knowing how you went about submitting to Medium.
Anyone can make something on Medium, but that project I did this in the collaboration with that literary magazine, The Drunken Boat, because they wanted people to write blogs on Medium that they would then promote. And so I proposed I write a blog called Notes on a Journey to the Ever-Dying Lands. That was my idea, which is about Latin American, lesser-known Latin American poetry, available in English. But Medium, anyone can just sign up to Medium and do their own blog on Medium. It's not exclusive at all.
There you go. There you go.
Have you ever been to Patagonia? I want to go to Patagonia.
Oh,
Been in the
Is that a
Pampa.
restaurant in Gloucester? Is that a new restaurant downtown?
It's the end of the earth. It's the end of
The end of the earth. It's a beautiful, beautiful end of the earth. Hey, I'm getting bit up by mosquitoes. I got to get inside.
okay. Before everybody goes, I just have one announcement, and that is we recorded this. I want to save it, and I want to put it on the Writer Center's website. Is everybody good with that?
It's fine.
What's up?
Yeah.
Sure. Only if you put me on the mailing list. You didn't put me on. I didn't get the website. You don't have me on the mailing list. I'm very angry with you. Put me on the mailing list.
Oh, don't be angry with me, please.
25 years old.
I think isn't there a place on the website?
There is.
Sign up on the web on the.
Yeah.
Look for it. I can't do all that work. I want to get something like everyone else goes. I've been on this thing.
No, you got to do some work,
You
Elizabeth.
gotta
Go
do
on
some
the
work,
website.
Liz.
Well,
Go
tell
on
me
the
what kind of
website.
work you want me to do, and I'll do it.
Go to the
Go on the
website, go to
website.
contacts, put in your name again.
There you
Again, I sign up all the time.
There you go.
You didn't
Okay.
miss me?
We miss you. We do miss
Listen,
you.
that guy on the saxophone and that
We miss
picture
you.
you had up, is that Lester Young?
No, that's Henry Farini. Thank you.
I just found another book with Lester
Who is
Young
that?
in it.
Is it?
It's called Jazz. It's over at the Manchester by the Book. What? He likes Lester Young.
Hey, Howard, you have
everyone.
to say hi to Dan Wilcox for us.
Yes,
Tell him
please.
to come back. I enjoyed his contributions last month, and he's been here a couple times. We had someone from New Orleans came one night, so we're Gloucester Writers Center, but it's a big world,
Yeah.
big internet. So,
Roger, thank you very much for hosting again.
all right,
Thank you all.
We'll see you.
and we will
Howard,
see you
thanks
all.
for coming. All
Bye,
right.
bye.
See you all.